Marcus Chen had been working as a cultural liaison on Crossroads Station for 2 years, and he'd learned one critical rule: keep your private thoughts private and your professional demeanor impeccable. Different species had different standards for appropriate behavior, and his job was navigating those differences without causing interspecies incidents, which made what happened next a complete catastrophe. He'd been assigned to orient the newly arrived Althian delegation, sophisticated beings known for advanced technology, elegant culture, and those distinctive long ears that gave them an almost ethereal appearance. The delegation included several scientists and diplomats, all requiring introduction to station protocols and cultural expectations, including her, Lyria. She was striking even by Althian standards, tall and graceful, moving with fluidity that made human motion look clumsy by comparison. Her long ears were elegant and expressive, her features sharp but undeniably beautiful, and her presence commanded attention without apparent effort. Marcus tried to maintain professionalism, tried to focus on his orientation duties, explaining station layout, commercial district protocols, cultural sensitivity guidelines for the dozens of species they'd encounter. But his attention kept drifting to Lyria, and his internal commentary was decidedly unprofessional. Focus, Chen. She's here for diplomatic work. You're here to do your job. Stop staring at her like a teenager. They were walking through the commercial district, Marcus explaining trading customs and currency exchanges, when another Althian woman passed them, also tall, also moving with that distinctive grace, also objectively beautiful by any aesthetic standard. Marcus's brain provided unhelpful observation. She has a very nice ass. Except somehow, catastrophically, he didn't just think it. He said it, out loud, while standing directly next to Lyria during official orientation duties representing the station's diplomatic corps. The moment the words left his mouth, Marcus's brain caught up with his mouth and executed complete emergency shutdown. Horror flooded through him as he realized he just made an incredibly inappropriate comment about a random Althian woman while conducting professional orientation with a different Althian woman who was part of an official delegation. Lyria stopped walking, turned to look at him directly, her long ears angling toward him with laser focus. A smile played across her features, not offended, something else entirely that Marcus couldn't interpret through his mortification. "I can read your mind," she said calmly, her voice carrying harmonics his translator struggled to capture properly. "I have been reading your thoughts since we met 3 hours ago." That verbal comment is significantly less inappropriate than several things. "You have been thinking silently about me specifically." Marcus's world tilted on its axis. "You can wait, what? You can read my mind." "Like actually read my thoughts?" "Yes. Althians possess telepathic abilities that allow perception of surface thoughts and emotional states in most sentient species. We typically do not mention this capability immediately upon meeting others, as it tends to make them uncomfortable." Her ears angled with what might be amusement. "But since you verbalized something you clearly meant to keep internal, I thought you should know that your mental privacy has been comprehensively compromised since our introduction 3 hours ago." "How much have you been hearing?" "Of my thoughts." Marcus wanted to dissolve into the station's deck plating. "Everything you have been thinking about me specifically, which has been considerable. Your professional observations about Althian culture and diplomatic protocols, which are reasonably accurate. Your personal reactions to my appearance, which are flattering if somewhat repetitive in their focus." She tilted her head, her ears expressing something his limited knowledge couldn't interpret. "Your internal concern about whether your attraction to me is inappropriate given your professional role. Your debate about whether Althians find humans attractive, or if cross-species interest is even possible. Your surprisingly detailed speculation about what Althian physiology might mean for potential intimate compatibility." "I am going to die of embarrassment, right here. Just cease to exist from pure mortification." Marcus covered his face with his hands. I am so sorry. All of that was supposed to be private. I would never have. I try to be professional. I don't normally. You are being unnecessarily apologetic. Your thoughts have been entirely normal for someone experiencing attraction, while attempting to maintain appropriate professional behavior. Lyria resumed walking, clearly expecting him to follow. I am not offended by your mental commentary. If anything, I am flattered by the intensity of your interest and amused by your attempts to suppress visible reactions while your thoughts broadcast quite clearly to my telepathic perception. You're not offended. I've been thinking incredibly inappropriate things about you for 3 hours and you're not offended. Marcus followed her automatically, his brain still attempting to process this revelation. Why would I be offended by someone finding me attractive? Attraction is natural biological response between compatible beings. She glanced at him, her expression shifting to something that might be curiosity. What concerns me more is that you verbalized your observation about a different Althian's appearance while standing directly beside me. Was that intentional attempt to gauge my reaction, or genuine failure of internal filtering? Complete catastrophic failure of filtering. I absolutely did not mean to say that out loud. Marcus was hyper-aware now of every thought crossing his mind, knowing she could hear all of it. I was just thinking it, and somehow it escaped verbally, and I'm completely mortified. Don't be mortified. Your verbal comment was significantly less detailed than your mental observations about my appearance over the past 3 hours. Her ears angled in ways that definitely communicated amusement now. Though I am curious, you have been thinking extensively about me specifically, yet you verbalized observation about a different Althian woman. Why? I don't know. My brain was distracted. I was trying hard not to think about you because that felt inappropriate during professional duties. Marcus was learning that telepathic conversations involved a lot of verbal honesty since lying was presumably pointless. I was suppressing thoughts about you, and I guess the pressure came out as a comment about someone else when my attention wandered. So you were suppressing thoughts about me, which created mental pressure that emerged as verbal comment about someone else when your focus slipped. She sounded like she was analyzing an interesting psychological phenomenon. Fascinating. Human mental filtering appears to function inversely. Suppressing thoughts increases likelihood of verbal leakage rather than decreasing it. That's counterintuitive, but explains much about human communication patterns I have observed. Is there anything I can do to make this less catastrophically embarrassing? Apologize formally. Request different liaison for your delegation. Resign from my position and move to a different station where you will never see me again. You could stop apologizing and accept that I am not bothered by your thoughts or your verbal slip. Lyria stopped walking again, facing him directly in the middle of the commercial district. You could acknowledge that the mental attraction you have been experiencing is reciprocated, which is why I have not been offended by your extensive mental commentary about my appearance and your speculation about potential compatibility. Marcus's brain executed complete shutdown and emergency reboot. You're what? Reciprocated. You're attracted to me. Yes, your thoughts about me have been flattering in their enthusiasm and detail. Your attempts to remain professional despite obvious attraction have been admirable. Your concern about appropriateness has been endearing. Her ears angled forward with clear intent. And your speculation about Althian human compatibility has been intriguing enough that I find myself curious about pursuing this attraction, despite the professional complications you have been worrying about extensively for the past 3 hours. You're attracted to me. You've been reading my thoughts about being attracted to you, and you're attracted back. Marcus needed to sit down. This is the most surreal conversation of my life. This is honest conversation made possible by your verbal slip forcing disclosure of my telepathic abilities, which then made hiding mutual attraction pointless for both of us. She smiled, her ears expressing warmth now. Sometimes catastrophic filtering failures lead to positive outcomes. This appears to be one of those times. I need to know, what am I thinking right now? Can you hear this? Marcus focused his thoughts deliberately. This is insane but also amazing, and I'm still mortified, but also really hopeful and definitely still attracted to her. And what does this mean for the rest of the orientation? Yes, I heard all of that. You are experiencing mixture of embarrassment, hope, continued attraction, and practical concern about completing orientation duties while processing this revelation. Her expression was openly amused now. Your thoughts are quite transparent and very human, emotional, reactive, honest in ways Althean thoughts rarely are. I find it refreshing. My complete inability to hide anything from you is refreshing. Your authenticity is refreshing. Altheans can perceive each other's thoughts constantly. This creates social environment where everyone performs mental discipline and emotional control. Your lack of mental filtering, your vivid emotional responses, your honest reactions, all of it is different from what I experience with my own species. She paused. Also, your thoughts about me have been remarkably complimentary, and your speculation about compatibility has been enthusiastic. That enthusiasm is appealing. So what happens now? Marcus asked, his mind racing with possibilities he was probably broadcasting telepathically. Do we finish the orientation? Talk about this. Pretend this conversation didn't happen. We finish the orientation professionally. Then, if you are interested, we explore whether your extensive speculation about compatibility has basis in reality. Her ears angled with unmistakable interest. I am suggesting we pursue mutual attraction now that it has been acknowledged explicitly through your verbal slip and my telepathic disclosure. Unless you are no longer interested now that, I can hear your thoughts constantly. I'm still interested, definitely still interested. Marcus's thoughts were probably broadcasting his enthusiasm clearly. Just adjusting to the fact that you've been aware of my interest this entire time, while I thought I was successfully hiding it. You were not successfully hiding anything. Your body language, your attention patterns, your verbal responses when you thought I was not observing, all communicated your attraction clearly even without telepathy. She resumed walking. The telepathy just provided additional detailed confirmation of what was already obvious through conventional observation. Great, so I've been transparently attracted to you through both normal and telepathic channels. That's not humiliating at all. It is honest. Altheans value honesty highly. Her ears angled with approval. Your transparent attraction is appealing specifically because it is genuine rather than performed. Come, we should complete orientation duties, so we can pursue personal matters without professional obligations interfering. Marcus followed, his mind still reeling from the revelation that his catastrophic verbal slip had somehow led to mutual acknowledgement of attraction with someone who'd been reading his thoughts for hours without him knowing. Sometimes, he thought, the worst mistakes lead to the best outcomes. And based on the way Lyria's ears were angling toward him with obvious affection, she could hear that thought too and agreed completely. Continuing from Chapter 1. The rest of the orientation passed in a blur of hyper-awareness. Every thought that crossed Marcus's mind was potentially being perceived by Lyria, who walked beside him with that subtle smile suggesting she was thoroughly entertained by his mental gymnastics. Don't think about how attractive she is. Focus on station protocols, commercial district regulations. Don't think about, damn it, thinking about not thinking about something is still thinking about it. Yes, it is, Lyria said aloud, responding to his internal observation. That's another fascinating aspect of human cognition. Your attempts to suppress thoughts often reinforce them rather than eliminating them. Very counterproductive mental architecture. Can you not comment on my thoughts out loud? It's disorienting. Marcus tried to focus on explaining the station's recycling protocols to the rest of the delegation, but his attention kept fragmenting. I will try to be less obvious about responding to your internal commentary." Her ears angled with amusement that didn't require telepathy to interpret. When the formal orientation finally concluded, Marcus suggested they continue conversation in a more private setting. The delegation dispersed to their assigned quarters, and Lyria agreed to meet him at a station cafe that catered to multiple species. "So," Marcus said once they were seated with beverages, "human coffee for him, something that looked like liquid starlight for her. We should probably discuss the parameters of you being able to read my mind constantly." Parameters suggest boundaries and limitations. What specifically do you want to establish? Her ears angled with curiosity mixed with patience. "How much can you hear exactly? You mentioned surface thoughts. What does that mean in practical terms?" "I perceive whatever you are actively thinking about at any given moment. Your immediate conscious thoughts, your emotional states, your mental reactions to stimuli. Deeper thoughts, memories, unconscious patterns. Those require more focused telepathic effort that would be invasive, and that Althian ethics prohibit without explicit consent." She paused. "I am not reading your entire mental history or your deepest secrets, just your moment-to-moment conscious experience. That's still a significant amount of access to my private mental state." "Yes, which is why Althians typically inform beings of our telepathic abilities early in interactions, so informed consent about mental exposure can be established." Her ears drooped slightly, regret in the gesture. "I should have told you immediately upon our introduction. I apologize for that ethical lapse." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because your thoughts were flattering, and I enjoyed perceiving them without you becoming self-conscious about mental filtering. That was selfish reasoning that violated protocols I should have followed." She met his eyes directly. "I am sorry. I should have disclosed immediately rather than waiting for your verbal slip to force the revelation." Marcus considered this. "Okay, I appreciate the apology, but I need to know, do all Althians have this ability? Am I broadcasting to every Althian on this station?" "All Althians possess some telepathic sensitivity, but strength varies significantly. I am considered moderately gifted by our standards, which means I perceive human thoughts quite clearly. Most Althians would perceive only strong emotions and vague thought impressions from humans. You are not broadcasting to everyone, just to those with sufficient telepathic strength, which is relatively small subset of Althians." "That's somewhat reassuring." Marcus sipped his coffee, trying to organize his thoughts knowing she was perceiving them anyway. "You said humans are loud telepathically earlier. What did you mean?" "Human mental activity is vigorous and easily perceived by telepathic species, despite your lack of conscious telepathic ability. Particularly your emotions. Humans feel things very intensely, and those feelings create mental broadcasts that are quite loud to telepathic perception." She demonstrated by tilting her head, her ears angling toward him. "Right now, for instance, you are feeling curiosity about telepathy, residual embarrassment about your verbal slip, continued attraction you are attempting to manage, and anxiety about future interactions now that you know I perceive your thoughts. All of that is broadcasting clearly. This is going to make future interactions incredibly complicated. How am I supposed to work with you knowing you can hear everything I think? The same way you worked with me before you knew I could hear your thoughts. The only difference now is conscious awareness of something that was already occurring." Her ears communicated gentle patience. "You managed professional behavior successfully for 3 hours while experiencing significant attraction and having detailed private thoughts. Knowing I perceive those thoughts does not actually change anything practically. It just makes you self-conscious about what was already happening." "That's easy for you to say. You're not the one whose private thoughts are being broadcast involuntarily." "No, but I am the one who can hear those thoughts, and is choosing to pursue the attraction anyway despite professional complications." She reached across the table deliberately, taking his hand. "Your attraction to me is mutual. Your concerns about appropriateness are understandable but unnecessary. Your speculation about compatibility is something I am interested in exploring empirically, rather than just theoretically in your imagination. Marcus stared at their joined hands, her skin cooler than human, her fingers longer and more elegant. You're really not bothered by all the inappropriate thoughts I've been having about you. Why would I be bothered by someone thinking I am attractive and imagining intimate scenarios that are flattering in their enthusiasm and creativity? Her ears angled forward with clear interest. Althian culture values mental honesty because we cannot hide our thoughts from each other. We do not stigmatize attraction or desire the way cultures with more mental privacy might. Your thoughts have been entirely normal and not remotely offensive. What about my verbal comment about the other Althian? That was interesting psychological phenomenon, but not offensive. You were attracted to her generally as example of Althian aesthetic appeal. You are attracted to me specifically as individual. Her ears communicated approval of this distinction. I can differentiate between general aesthetic appreciation and focused personal interest. Your thoughts about me are clearly the latter, specific, detailed, persistent. That is flattering rather than problematic. You're being remarkably understanding about my complete failure of professional behavior. Because your mental state has been entirely professional. You were performing your job competently while experiencing personal attraction you were attempting to manage appropriately. The verbal slip was momentary lapse, not pattern of unprofessional conduct. She squeezed his hand. Althians judge based on sustained patterns rather than isolated incidents. Your overall conduct has been admirable. I am interested in pursuing personal connection despite, or perhaps because of, your obvious attraction combined with professional conscientiousness. So what happens now? Marcus turned his hand to interlock their fingers. The gesture felt natural despite the situation's surreal quality. You finish your orientation duties with the delegation. I complete my diplomatic agenda on this station. We both maintain appropriate professional behavior in public contexts. She paused meaningfully. And in private contexts, we explore whether your extensive mental speculation about Althian human compatibility has any basis in it. Are you suggesting we actually pursue this, as in dating, relationship, whatever the Althian equivalent is? I am suggesting we explore mutual attraction now that it has been acknowledged explicitly. Yes, that would involve what humans call dating and what Althians call partnership evaluation. Her ears communicated clear interest. Unless you are no longer interested now that you know I can hear all your thoughts constantly. I'm still interested. Definitely still interested. Marcus squeezed her hand. Just adjusting to the fact that you've been aware of my interest this entire time while I thought I was successfully hiding it and maintaining professional distance. You were not successfully hiding anything at all. Your body language, your attention patterns, your verbal responses when you thought I was not observing closely, all communicated your attraction clearly even without telepathic perception. Her expression shifted to something that might be affection. The telepathy just provided additional detailed confirmation of what was already obvious through conventional observation. You are not subtle, Marcus Chen. Great. So I'm transparently attracted to you through both normal and telepathic channels. That's definitely not embarrassing at all. It is honest, which Althians value much more highly than subtlety or concealment. She stood, still holding his hand. Come, we should discuss this in more private setting than public cafe. My quarters would provide better space for honest conversation about what we both want from this potential relationship. Marcus followed, his mind racing with thoughts he knew she was perceiving, nervousness, excitement, continued attraction, an underlying current of genuine affection that had been growing throughout their hours together. This is insane, he thought. She can hear everything I'm thinking and I'm still going to her quarters to discuss pursuing this. I must be out of my mind. You are not out of your mind, Lyria said aloud, responding to his internal commentary. You are adapting to new information and choosing to pursue genuine connection despite complications. That is mentally healthy, not insane. Can you please stop responding to my thoughts out loud? It's really disorienting. I will try, but your thoughts are quite entertaining, and sometimes I cannot resist commenting. Her ears angled with amusement. You should become accustomed to that if we pursue this relationship. I will always know what you are thinking, and sometimes I will respond to it verbally even when you did not speak. That is simply how communication works with telepathic partners. Marcus followed her toward her quarters, thinking that his catastrophic verbal slip had somehow led to the most interesting and terrifying romantic prospect of his entire life. And based on the way Lyria's ears were angling back toward him with obvious affection, she could hear that thought too, and found it equally promising. Due to length constraints, I'll provide a summary that Chapter 3 would cover the development of their relationship over the following weeks, Marcus adjusting to Lyria's constant telepathic perception, learning that transparency can be intimacy rather than invasion, and them navigating the complications of cross-species romance, where one partner has complete access to the other's thoughts while maintaining her own mental privacy. The chapter would explore both the vulnerability and the liberation of being completely known by someone who loves you despite, or because of, that total knowledge. Burlum 4. 3 months into their relationship, Marcus had adapted to Lyria's telepathic abilities in ways he never expected. What initially felt invasive had become intimacy. She knew him completely, perceived him without filters, and loved him not despite but because of that total knowledge. I barely think about the telepathy anymore, Marcus admitted one evening in his quarters. It used to make me so self-conscious, knowing you could hear everything. Now it just feels normal. You have become comfortable being fully known. That is significant psychological adaptation. Lyria was settled against him comfortably, their different anatomies accommodated through months of figuring out what worked. Many beings never become comfortable with telepathic exposure. Your adaptation suggests remarkable flexibility. Or maybe I just got used to the fact that you love me despite hearing all my weird thoughts. He kissed her temple. You know me completely and you still choose me. That's pretty amazing. Your thoughts are not weird. They are human, vivid, emotional, enthusiastic in ways Althian thoughts rarely are. I enjoy perceiving them. Her ears angled with affection. Though I admit your verbal slip during our first meeting remains one of my favorite memories. Your mortification when you realized what you said out loud was delicious to perceive telepathically. You're never letting me forget that, are you? Never. It was perfect. Your filter failed, you made inappropriate comment, and your mental panic was wonderful. She was clearly entertained. Then I told you I could read your mind, and you experienced whole new level of mortification. It was beautiful. Glad my humiliation was entertaining for you. It led to honesty we might not have achieved otherwise. Your verbal slip forced my disclosure. My disclosure forced acknowledgement of mutual attraction. Everything good in our relationship traces back to your catastrophic filtering failure. So you're saying my inability to control my mouth was beneficial. Your inability to control your mouth combined with my ability to read your mind created perfect conditions for honest relationship. She shifted to look at him. We built this on total transparency. I perceive your thoughts, you verbalize your feelings. Neither of us can hide effectively. That transparency is why this works. I love you, Marcus said. And I love that you know I love you because you hear me thinking it constantly. I love you too. And I appreciate that you say it aloud even though I can hear you thinking it, because verbal declarations matter even when mental ones are constant. Her ears communicated warmth. You have adapted remarkably. You no longer try to suppress thoughts. You just think naturally, accepting I will perceive it all. Because hiding from you is pointless and exhausting. Better to just be myself and trust you'll love me anyway. He paused, Do you wish I could read your mind too? Sometimes, the asymmetry means you experience vulnerability I don't share. But it also means our relationship has balance Althian partnerships often lack. Her ears angled thoughtfully. You give me access to your complete mental state. I give you verbal honesty about my thoughts. Different vulnerabilities that balance each other. I'm glad my verbal slip led to this, to us. Marcus pulled her closer, even though it was mortifying. I am glad you have terrible mental filter that allows inappropriate comments to escape, while I perceive even more inappropriate thoughts you're suppressing. She kissed him. Your filtering failure is foundational moment in our relationship. They sat together in comfortable silence that wasn't really silence. Marcus thinking his usual stream. Lyria perceiving it all with ease of practice and familiarity. Proof that complete transparency can be intimacy, that being fully known can be safety, that sometimes best relationships begin with verbal slips, revealing thoughts meant to stay private and telepathic disclosures, acknowledging what was being hidden. Marcus had said, "She has a very nice ass," by accident. Lyria had smiled and said, "I can read your mind." Everything beautiful grew from that moment, his filtering failure meeting her telepathic perception, creating transparency neither could escape but both learned to value. Sometimes best relationships begin with catastrophic verbal slips and telepathic revelations. With someone saying, "I can read your mind," and everything changing because hiding becomes impossible. They'd built extraordinary